where are people growing when they move into a community type housing? I know as I live in shared housing, there's a lot of skill sets that I'm forced to practice and learn to be able to function in a good way with other people. Where do you see people growing? How do you see people maybe they kind of grounding into themselves or blossoming, flourishing? Like what other types of benefits might people receive from living in this way?
I think a lot of what people learn is really how to work together, how to work collaboratively. Because when you set up a housing situation where you are responsible for things collectively or you interact with people on a regular basis, you're bound to have interactions that are stressful sometimes. So learning how to work with those. One of the roles that I've had in the co-housing world for 25, 30 years is teaching things like meeting facilitation, consensus decision-making, conflict resolution, communication styles, because those are the kind of things, and for a lot of people, they don't have to do that in their daily lives. Certainly at work, some of those things are helpful, but work's typically structured very hierarchical, where co-housing is much more egalitarian, very horizontal decision-making. There's not really a leader. It's much more group-led. So it gives you an opportunity to learn things, and consensus is something that very few people know about, and it's a key component of being a successful community member.
Yeah, would you share more on that? Give us that structure or help people to understand what consensus is and how they might go through that process and how they might incorporate that into their own homes, work?
Sure. So typically what people, when they think of having a meeting, they think about coming together with people to make decisions. It's very typical Robert's Rules of Orders where you have a voting system. And once you have 51% of people that agree with one direction, it usually passes and then they can move forward. But the reality is that means you've got 49% of the people who are probably not very happy with what the decision is. So they tend to not stick. And you end up remaking decisions and going back or just having conflict because you've got a large number of people who don't really like the decision that was being made. Consensus comes from a different perspective. It's saying, what can we do where we can get the most people possible consenting to the decision? Doesn't mean they all love it. It doesn't mean they all think that it's absolutely the right way to go, but they can live with it. And it's important for people to understand that when you are doing a consensus model, you have to think more like a group mind a little bit. Like what's the best decision for the group, for the community, for the company? And so when you have to be thinking about it in that way. Now, it doesn't mean you can't say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. That's totally fine. And if enough people say they don't think it's a good idea, then obviously you need to continue to work the decision through. This comes from the Quakers. They've been doing it for 350 years. And that came from the Iroquois Confederacy, from the Native Americans who've been doing it for thousands of years. So the whole idea is that you make the strongest, most lasting decision when you can get supermajority buy-in. It doesn't mean it has to be 100%, even though that is often what's considered consensus. But you definitely don't want people who are saying this is absolutely not the right decision for us to do. And then you just keep working it through until you have enough people that say, yes, that's the right thing.
And is everyone coming together and there's like a consensus meeting, or is this, how is the communication happening?
So someone will, let's say it's in a co-housing neighborhood and there's a decision to build a tool shed or a proposal to build a tool shed. So they'll put it out there and people will ask questions about it. They may need a lot of information before they can come up with a final decision. So it gets worked through. Sometimes the decisions take longer. It may take more than one meeting, but you get all the information, you talk it through. People will say one concept is that everybody holds a piece of the truth. So it's really, really important to make sure that everybody contributes their thought and their feelings into the decision. So that's something that is, you need a facilitator, a good facilitator that can do that and make sure that they are even especially the quiet people, that you pull them out and find out, what do you think about this? And eventually you kind of get to the point where you realize that the concerns have all been met. So you would say, here's the proposal, and kind of lay it out again. And you say, is there anybody here that feels that this is not the right decision? Then you have silence, and then it's like, okay, we've reached consensus, and you move on.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil and a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Now, what brought you into this line of work? Hearing that you studied some of this at university, did you grow up in a home that that you were learning some of these types of ways, or what did growing up look like?
Well, I grew up in a small little village called Los Angeles. So no way were any of these things taught. It was not part of the culture at all. When I went away to college, I started to get involved later part of my college years in anti-war, and social justice. It wasn't called that at that point, but different types of things. And people created affinity groups, and they created smaller subsets of people who were doing actions or making decisions or being involved with political activities, and they would make decisions collectively. I didn't officially learn about it until I got involved with co-housing and learned that consensus, it's just an integral part of it. And I went through several trainings to be able to learn how it works, how to teach it, how to facilitate meetings where that was the decision making. So it's definitely something that I learned, kind of post college.
Was there an event in your life that sparked your interest or this path, or did it just kind of all unfold?
Yeah. So when I was, I guess, in my senior year of college, my fourth or fifth year, I was a marine biology major, and I had the opportunity to go out and work on a little island documenting the life of elephant seals. It's kind of my Jacques Cousteau experience. And it was fascinating. We went out there every weekend for a whole winter, put on wetsuits and got into a little rubber raft and went out to the island and then stayed there for the weekend and observed. It was a sociobiology study, so we were following just the whole life of these animals when they would come ashore to give birth and mate and nurse and die and fight and everything. And we just kept track of all that.
And what islands?
This was called Año Nuevo Island off the coast of Santa Cruz, so in Northern California. At the same time, I was taking a class on campus called Utopian Visions in a Modern Society by a very influential a man who became my mentor. And we read a number of books, kind of utopian type books. Ecotopia was one that was really influential for me. And it talked about how we could reorganize our communities, our cities, to be sustainable. I mean, that wasn't the word that was used back then, but to be much more egalitarian, to be more environmental, to really be in such a way that you can live that way in a peaceful, harmonious, productive way. And I had this kind of aha where I just said, wow, I think it's more important for me to follow that path than to, follow elephant seals. So I made a switch at that point and went from marine biology into environmental planning. And that was where I began to think about community and sustainable community, much more environmentally supportive. So I made that switch my last year and started to investigate intentional communities. And when I graduated, I went off to be a planner, an environmental planner for an intentional community in Oregon. That was quite an experience because I thought I was going to be showing up there to be a planner and help them, because this was a 2,500 acre or 1,200 acres, 2,500 people. So it was going to be a small town. And I got there, and very shortly after I arrived, the wife of the founder passed away. And it was a huge setback for everyone. And I ended up taking on a huge role in terms of managing the visitors campground, managing the office, putting together the newsletter, all of those type of things at once. And I really watched how that was done. And the founder had a great vision, a really incredible, enticing, that would just attract people, ongoingly. But he was not very good at playing with others. So people would come with lots of energy and lots of good ideas, and he would kind of go, okay, well, we'll see about that. And he never really empowered them. He never included their ideas, and they would just then drift away. So I learned a lot about what not to do in terms of creating community, and a lot of it had to do with the decision-making style of, you have a visionary leader who just can't open up and allow other people to be part of that. And co-housing is kind of the other end of that spectrum, where everybody is encouraged to bring their best to the table and their ideas, and then you meld those together to come up with, how the group's going to move forward.